we'll get into this. The next thing that I take issue with here. A similar episode occurred when Alternative für Deutschland was officially designated as a confirmed right-wing extremist group by the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution. One U.S. government representative accused Germany of tyranny. Such a response is reminiscent of Nazi propaganda, where the roles of persecutors and persecuted, perpetrators and victims were reversed. Unexpectedly, we are now witnessing the strange spectacle of a faction of the ruling class radically disavowing and attacking the institutions of the state, the media, the judiciary, and the police. Now, this same thing is technically correct, but also technically incorrect. So the AfD is a right-wing extremist group. But the things that make the AfD a right-wing extremist group are their anti-migrant policies, right? What else makes them a right-wing extremist group? So the radical racism of the AfD is, pretty much universally acknowledged as like part of their platform. They will say it. They agree that they are like radically anti-migrant. So what happens in this last elections is the CDU adopts the AfD's program on migrants, and in order to win the election, capitalizing on popular anti-migrant sentiment, and wins. What are the other parts of the AfD's program that the CDU doesn't share? The AfD is Eurosceptic. The AfD opposes giving German money and aid to the Ukrainians. So these other two elements that the Europeans, or specifically Germans, consider to be right-wing and extremist aren't shared by the CDU. So the CDU doesn't get labeled the right-wing extremist party, even though they're as racist as the AfD. So this was
the real dividing line is the question of Europeanness, or not Europeanness, of the structures of Europe. Yeah,
right. So to me, that's a bullshit designator right there. Sure, they're a right-wing extremist party, but not any more so than the other parties that adopted the same racist ideas and promote those mainstream. The most dangerous thing that the AfD does is act as a pole of attraction that pulls these other parties to the right. The other parties are as guilty as the AfD of the AfD's racism. But the scary part was like, you want to make Germany not part of the EU anymore, and you want to stop funding a proxy war against Russia that might one day result in a nuclear exchange. So, I take issue with that. And that sort of, I guess, betrays an underlining liberal sort of sentiment among European socialists that I was kind of pointing out earlier. This idea that social democracy is somehow doing a job that should have countered the rise of authoritarianism, rather than seeing it as deficient in its countering of movements away from democracy. I think that the liberalism of the author is like revealing itself here. Unexpectedly, we are now witnessing the strange spectacle of a faction of the ruling class radically disavowing and attacking institutions of the state, the media, the judiciary, and the police. He must have absolutely no knowledge of American politics if he thinks this is a strange new thing developing. Right-wingers in the United States always attack the institutions of state, always attack the media, always attack activist judges. Now, the police, that's another thing. Right-wingers never attack the police. It's one thing you can always guarantee is that American right-wingers will lick cop boots. No, that's not true. Right-wing militiamen are as anti-police, and so are libertarians.
I was just thinking, when the National Guard is called in to help escort black children to school, right-wingers didn't like that. They were very, very opposed to the use of, at least of the federal state. Maybe not. Maybe the local cops got a pass. But a faction of the ruling class radically disavowing and attacking the institutions of the state has a precedent going back at least to Reconstruction, but really more like in
the United States. Let's talk about anti-federalism.
Yeah, I was going to say this.
The founding of the Republic.
There's always been a faction of the ruling class radically disavowing and attacking the institutions of the state.
The media, the judiciary, and the police. All right, so next category. So, I mean, I guess this makes a lot more sense if you're a European and you are convinced that the European foundation, that the liberal foundations of Europe are a platform for building socialism. If you accept those preconditions, this article makes a lot more sense and is a lot easier to agree with. There must be deeper causes behind these synchronous developments. They cannot be founded in the activities of right-wing nationalist and authoritarian groups, nor in the widespread attitudes of the population revealed by opinion polls, nor simply in social poverty. What we are witnessing is a broader transnational trend towards an authoritarian rule, supported by substantial bourgeois forces. Some of these forces may not want right-wing governments or remain ambivalent. Consider Bezos or Musk in the post-2017 era of the reserve stance of German business associations toward the AfD. Presumably, they themselves are drawn into authoritarian dynamic that increasingly becomes a relationship of dependency. They have talked themselves into a hostile position against gender, political correctness, so-called identity politics, the overburdening of the welfare state and bureaucracy. What fucking so-called identity politics? No, it's just it is identity politics. Is that throwing a bone to the libs to make sure he doesn't get like? Or anyway, sorry. Well,
yeah, I think so. Yes.
Let me finish this paragraph. The CDU's slogans about foreigners out and the ongoing weakening of asylum law under the pretext that Islam does not belong in Germany then escalate into demands for mass deportations and far-reaching immigration restrictions. He kind of illustrates here what I was talking about with the CDU being as racist as the AfD.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep going. There's not enough to talk about in that paragraph. The fact that Wolfgang Schäuble, Christian Wolff, and Horst Seehofer later retracted their own racist statements after leaving office no longer matters. I don't think it matters at all because I don't know who those guys are. I study Germany, so this must be a relatively recent thing that I don't know anything about. There is a continuous presence of far-right forces in the media, in the conservative parties, and in internet groups. These actors pursue the same politics or deliberately adopt the far-right's dynamics, cooperate with them strategically, push for suitable policies, and oppose what they portray as the ruling party's indecisiveness and hypocrisy. They radicalize mainstream positions in the so-called democratic center. Think Nicolas Sarkozy, Sebastian Kurz, Seehofer, and Jens Spahn. This is the product of a certain indecisiveness within the bourgeois milieu, political parties, the media, and churches concerning how far they are willing to go, and concessions are made. Concessions are made. In other words, as political and strategic conflicts unfold across the divisions, specific individuals and groups may radicalize and break away. As much happened in the AfD, whose founding members included market libertarians and right-wing CDU-aligned middle-class actors. Okay. He kind of makes the point that they radicalize mainstream positions in the so-called democratic center. I made that point about the AfD and the CDU. That's markedly, just undeniably correct.
That does kind of go a long way to that at least tends toward I think the opposite conclusions. It tends more toward my contention that the fascist threat is just it's just regular normal authoritarian tendencies within capitalism.
Right. Actors in the right-wing parties sometimes openly refer to themselves as fascists and invoke historical models such as Hitler, the SS, the SA. They explicitly articulate anti-Semitic views, deny the Holocaust, dig up the Stolperstein memorials. Those are the Stolperstein memorials. Those are the stumbling stones. When you walk around Europe, any place where the Holocaust happened, you'll see little, like every once in a while, a paving stone is removed, and there'll be like a bronze one there. That has like a name and the date in it, and that's from. It'll be in front of the house where Jews were deported to the death camps from. disrupt commemorative events, and desecrate Jewish cemeteries, only to threaten their opponents with violence they claim they did not commit moments later. Often, their stance is less overt. They imply a certain sympathy or continuity with historical fascism, only to then disavow such allusions. They make historical revisionist or relativizing statements, only to chalk them up to misunderstandings later on. I mean, this whole paragraph here is like referring to things that have happened with neo-fascists that are part of like the AfD and part of Rassemblement National. And I don't think anyone would, author included, would deny that there are fascists that are a threat, even while denying that organized fascism is a threat.